since the dawn of humanity. And even though our world has seen many advances in both science and technology over the past few centuries, disagreements about God still and to this day lead to ethnic and religious warfare, hatred, exploitation, and the suppression of women. Many religions have created rituals and dogmas that separate one from the other, and they often cling to beliefs that they're the only ones that have answers, the correct explanations, the one truth. But are any of them actually right? Can the true nature of God ever be understood or explained? Hi, I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and this is Just Energy. Today we're going to be speaking with Rashmi Khilnani about her new movie, I, God. Rashmi is a modern mystic. She teaches and practices several healing modalities and has taught Reiki masters, doctors, scientists, and people from all walks of life the secrets of the mystery school teachings. She is a global metaphysical teacher, urban shaman, international lecturer, artist, seminar leader, and personality. Her webpage is igodthefilm.com. So please welcome Rashmi Khilnani. Hi Rashmi, how are you doing today?
Hi, Dr. Rita. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Big hello from not so sunny London today, but I did get to Holland Park and smell the roses.
Well, hello back from very hot and humid Texas. So, Rashmi, why create a movie about God?
Well, I've been teaching Reiki Masters for many years, and then I went on to channeling the Ascended Masters, and then I went on to working for Maha Avatar Babaji, who's mentioned in Autobiography of a Yogi, 1008 times Lord Shiva, which is synonymous with my inner self, my higher voice, or, my higher self within me. And I heard this voice after I recovered from cancer. I felt like I took it on to take Reiki into the hospitals here in London, the Royal Marsden Hospital, etc. And no sooner had I finished a year of intensive treatments, I went through all the allopathic route because I was asked to by the Ascended Masters. And I was told to go to the States and help in the wake up of the spiritual leaders of America, and to write 3 books and to make a spiritual film. So I was like, what?
I know that voice. I know that voice. And have it done next week, too, probably.
Well, the last 8 years, and we're reaching a 9-year completion cycle. So, the 3 books are out there. The Divine Mother Speaks, The Healing of the Human Heart, which is all about Reiki energy mastery made simple, Ascension made simple, Mystery School teachings made simple with the goddess Hathor channeling. I grew up in Egypt. For the first 6 years, I lived by the Great Pyramid of Giza. And I know that I've come down from Venus to help in the Ascension cycle. So yeah, there I was. Suddenly my dad was the editor of the Times of India newspaper, but I never thought I would write. And actually I haven't written my books. I just spoke them out over 21 days, and another energy master teacher friend transcribed on the computer. And then I met Woody Allen in London, in Petersham by the river, and I thought, well, I'm supposed to make this spiritual film with him. But that didn't happen. And then soon after that, I was back in America in Charlottesville. You know Sarah, my publicist and friend, very well. And my publisher is Robert Friedman, who was also the publisher for Neil Donald Walsh and Richard Bach, one of the #1 channel material publishers in the world. Well, I just met him, because I was meant to. And then as I was going in there for another book and spending a lot of time in the States with morphogenic work for, at the time, Obama's election and so on, but 8 years, I was invited to co-produce this film with Neil Donald Walsh. So I said, unless I go meet him and I check out what the project is, I'm not saying yes.
So it is co-produced with Neil Donald Walsh?
It's co-produced with Neil Donald Walsh and Robert Friedman, who's the publisher of his books and my books. And actually, my books were I was, in the list of best-selling New York best-selling authors before my book was even published, as one of
Wow.
the speakers in the film, irrespective of whether I was going to invest in the film or not. And I sold the roof over my head. I had a studio in London, right here in Kensington, where I am, and I sold everything just to complete this mission of helping to wake up the planet, particularly through the States, because the States is a leader on the planet, and uh, and was going to go through so much change, which we can see now. It's all happening. Fasten our seatbelts.
Yeah, no kidding. So let's get down to some business. Why do we believe in God in the first place? What is it in us that compels us to have a belief in something that is basically unseen?
Well, most metaphysical things are unseen, like love is not a seen commodity, intuition, so much of the finer things of life. There's much more than the five senses, as I teach my Reiki students and Reiki masters. You have the five senses, and then you have the sixth and seventh sense. The sixth sense is the psychic sense, but the seventh sense is the spiritual sense. And the psychic sense, you could be channeling all sorts of entities that might not even be at the same level of consciousness as you, just because they're not in a body. Whereas the seventh sense, the spiritual sense, is connecting to the oneness, the absolute field, the unified field of consciousness, absolute reality, where we are all one, which has even been proven by quantum physics. So I don't particularly like that word God myself, but I was, on my side, I wanted to make this film. It was Neil's film, and Bob really wanted to make it. His son is the director, and he's award-winning director of many films. He won 1 million in the Super Bowl for making a $20 ad film. But they're very talented, his children, and they've won awards. So I would have made a film called I Goddess personally myself, because the divine feminine is waking up in the hearts of men and women at the moment, big time, which is the energy of intuition, allowing, being, and so on. But what was great about the film, from my point of view, was that we were interviewing all sorts of people from many walks of life: pagans, quantum physicists. I was giving the Reiki goddess perspective, but all sorts of perspectives, and then heads of states and people off the street. And these questions take you very deep within, and also it helps to show unity consciousness, I hope, because religion, even those of us that think we're done with that from our conditioning and childhoods, etc., it's interesting when you watch the film how much those things play out, or then we become born again Buddhists or born again New Agers.
Well, and that was one of the questions that I had, that I found it very interesting that a lot of people, kind of depending on their base belief system, I guess, gave very similar answers. And I'm really a dogmatist. I don't know if that's a word, but if I spot dogma, it makes me crazy. And I'm going, oh my God, are we so brainwashed into thinking about God?
Exactly, exactly. And between politics and the church, through history, really, there's so much mayhem has been caused in the name of these things. And I think I'm probably the only speaker in the film, when asked the questions about, is there heaven and hell, do you believe in right and wrong, what happens after you die, and what is your belief? It's like, to me, the divine is not a belief. It's an experiential understanding. And most of the others are talking about belief. And this is a time now to come out of beliefs, to come out of the mind energy into the heart, into the cosmic heart, which then connects to all hearts on the planet. And that's a much higher spectrum of electromagnetic energy. That's why my first book, The Divine Mother Speaks, The Healing of the Human Heart, is the goddess Hathor, who is the sky goddess, the heart goddess, the goddess of celebration and love, talking about this wake-up time. What are we going to choose? And to me, God is not separate from us. So again, a lot of the answers are, a separation, like God is outside of ourselves. Whereas in the deepest metaphysical, mystical understanding, we understand that we are one with all that is. We are one with God. Om Namah Shivaya means I love myself, I honor myself, God, Goddess dwell within me as me. And it's the same in many other spiritual ways, and like the mystical Sufis and so on. So there's no one path to the divine, and that's why I chose Reiki, even though I was invited to become a teacher of many different streams of, so-called spirituality or religion
Hmm.
in this lifetime.
Um, well, I'm going to find the question because it's a direct response. Okay, so please forgive the way that I say this, but I'm just going to read what I wrote. So I found it interesting that in the movie, it suggested that New Age, New Thought authors kind of strayed away from traditional text. But wouldn't it be more correct in saying that their understanding of God comes from outside the Western world and outside of biblical texts?
Well, I think it's very difficult to say which bit comes from where because there are so many streams within streams, and now people are saying even the new age has become the old age, and many of us are downloading new information, and ultimately, is anything new? It's I've been decoding the wisdom teachings through my three books, Buddha Speaks, Shiva Speaks, and the Divine Mother Speaks, and through the work that I do. But ultimately, everything is within the so-called time it's not linear really. It's everything is simultaneous. So the new is happening at the same time as the old, and as the Pleiadians say, they have come from our future into our present to rectify their past, where they've misused the energies, with tampering with our DNA, for example. So it's very difficult to understand a lot of these things just through the mind.
Hmm. But it seems like when you move out of Abrahamic traditions, that the focus or the more in the path of initiation is really about going within, reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with nature. There are myths. I love mythology. There are myths that talk about a time where we could talk to the plants and we could talk to the animals. And I think in today's mind, they think, dogs could talk like, hey, give me that bone. But that's in my interpretation, that's not what they're talking about. It's that we had that connection which somewhere we lost. And it sounds like what you're trying to do is help people to reconnect with
That
that.
is right. In all my radio shows, and I've done hundreds. I've got my own radio show, the Rashmi Khilnani show, and 2013 and beyond with Jeremy McDonald in the States in Florida. And this is such an important point you brought up, Rita, because in Hinduism, which is not really a religion, it goes back eons, 5,000 BC, and that's just based on our linear history, but it actually goes much further back. And I always wondered in history in school in India, why they were nature worshippers. At the time, I was a bit linear because I'd gone into my conditioning for a few years. And now I understand because, it's so important. I spend every day in the park just sitting there holding frequency, sending frequency, and embodying frequency because we're not human doings, we are human beings. And nature is the closest thing we have to the divine energies. And that's why when we worship earth, water, fire, air, ether in Hinduism, in the shamanic ways, the Native Americans have done it and do it. And there are so many other indigenous, wisdom in all over the globe that practices this. And the shamans, we've got shamans in our film as well. So, and there's a whole chapter in my book, The Divine Mother Speaks, on the elements and, how we can connect to the archetypal elements within and without. And that's so important because they're the building blocks of physical reality, our bodies, our earth, and the cosmology within manifest reality.
Well, one of the things you said earlier was that, relating to God and even relating to this energy isn't about reading about it. It isn't about talking about it. It isn't about, one of my favorites, running around with a stick of smudge thinking that that action is going to do something. It's about experiencing it and being it.
Exactly. Exactly. So as the divine feminine, Rita, Dr. Rita, you understand this, and it's really important as people's hearts open, as there's more chaos on this planet. The Hathor beings call it stabilizing in chaos. I met Tom Kenyon in Orcas Island, and that was so wonderful because he wrote the Hathor material, and then I went on to write the God, the Divine Mother Speaks, which was actually initially called Hathor Speaks, the Healing of the Human Heart. And in order to stabilize in chaos, this is what the energy is pushing for now, the photonic energy, the solar flares, and our own hearts and souls, because it's a 26,000 year cycle is ending, and it's now time to wake up. And that is to not a female matriarchal system, but to balancing the right and left hemispheres of the brain, and to understanding that female energy within us, that divine energy of co-creation, cooperation, and coexistence, as opposed to competition, fight, flight, which is more the patriarchal male energies that exist within men and women. Both do.
But I think also added in there is about reception. Male energy is about pushing it out, it's about
That's
moving it out, where that female energy, and I don't even like calling it male and female,
exactly.
because I think
It's not
people
a
get so
gender.
stuck with that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's not a gender thing at all. We are
no.
androgyne at soul level. And but what's really interesting is that even myself, when I watch the film, um, it does push your buttons because people come up with things that seems feel a little fanatical, and then there's so many different voices, and yet these questions and the film help you to go deeper within and to begin to question, why am I here? What am I doing on the planet? Can I coexist with others even if I don't agree with their views? Because maybe they've been brought up that way, or maybe they genuinely believe in what they believe in. And at the end of the day, we can't force waking up on people. We are in a free will zone, and everybody's going to wake up in their own divine timing within free will and the higher good.
My boyfriend, he makes me laugh because we'll talk about something, we'll talk about my guest on the show. So we might be talking about, one of my favorite things to throw out about, the reptilians that live in underground bases and how they're controlling society. I mean, that's my canned response. And and he'll sit there and go, "Oh, well, that's just crazy," and blah 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 blah. But there are people that believe it, and so even in watching the movie, you can see this broad spectrum of beliefs that people have about God, that maybe people will wake up to the idea, the concept that what I believe isn't the only potential belief out there.
Exactly, exactly. And to begin to have a little bit of tolerance for others,
Exactly.
compassion, and to see ultimately at the end of the film, Neil wraps it up with, can we just, it is a oneness energy, a oneness soup, really. But many of us, realize that actually, even though everybody's saying different things, we're all really speaking not such a dissimilar language about love, about connection, about, our humanity. And I think this film can really help with things like ISIS, and as the social, political, economic systems begin to collapse, which is happening, and there's going to be more and more of this. People then, even people that think, oh well, I'm agnostic, well then they go rushing and start praying to an angel or somebody or something. And if we can all begin to realize that, we are all God, if we respect each other and love ourselves, which is such a big key, because most people have lack of self-worth, lack of self-respect, lack of self-love, which then leads them to fight and flight and disrespect their neighbors. So I think it can play a big role, even for people that are mystics and have been on the path a long time.
But the whole ISIS Sharia law thing, I find really interesting in that they believe that they are following the dictates of God and doing what God wants them to do. And so even if they're killing people, they kind of get the karmic benefit because they're doing what God wants them to do. Even though we
Yeah.
look at it and think that it's
But you
You know,
know, a lot of these things are false flags, and the politicians have misused a religion, you know, to make all Muslims bad, for example, which is just not true. And very often it's not even the ISIS that have done whatever is happening on the planet, or they're being funded by the powers that be, and so on. So yes, you know, certain religions do have, in fact, every single religion, you know, even the Christians have had the Crusades, and you know, the Hindus have had terrible things. Every single religion has a negative aspect to it, and in fact, I'm not into religion myself at all personally. I'm much more into mysticism and energy and spirituality, which to me is about loving and, you know, do unto others as you would to yourself, and to cooperate and to co-create and to share and save the world. And I think more and more people are beginning to wake up to this reality, and a film like this can help even the people that are in the film that are major spiritual leaders. You know, we've got Mariam Williamson, James von Prague, we've got, you know, heads of state, of you know, the rabbis, and even they, it's an evolution, because being behind the camera, I think my job was to help bring an even higher frequency of energy. And it's not me, the ego self, it's just this energy of pure service that has come to this planet to serve and love. And that includes, of course, serving and loving myself. It doesn't mean I have to be a beggar and a pauper. But money has never been my bottom line. You know, I left 15 homes. I sold the roof over my head to do these books and the film. I became the angel seed investor of this film. I feel to bring the goddess energy to America, even to the leaders in America that are talking about love, because many of them are great messengers. But there's always another place we can reach. And I'm not saying I'm it, but many of us are bringing the new downloads and the high frequency that is extremely pure, and it's way, way beyond profit and loss and so on. And that doesn't mean making money out of spirituality is a bad thing, but it has to be balanced, and it does need to be pure. And so there's always evolution, you know, because sometimes the new spiritual new age leaders, you know, they too, in a way, sometimes could become the new priests on the block, in a sense. So we have to balance power. And so, you know, some of us are here to just bring that higher energy. And I feel people like the Dalai Lama and Amaji and people like that have gone all over the world, beyond denomination and beyond gender and so on. You know, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, you know, there are so many. And all the radio show hosts like yourself in the States. I bow to all of you, because you're all serving tirelessly for years. Sometimes even knowing that there may not be that many people listening, though of course now more and more and more people are listening. And we're doing our work for free, you know. And as I keep saying, it's the balance, because charging, there's nothing wrong with that as well. For 8 years I've been a philanthropist. I haven't charged. But if I need to, I will. And that's okay too.
I mean, I don't know about everyone, you know, doing radio shows, for example. You know, if they're doing it for the same motivation, but I am compelled to do it. You know, I got the message kind of
It's a
like you were
calling.
talking about with your books that said
Yeah.
one day it's time. And I
Yes.
said, time for what? And they said, to do a radio show. And I laughed at them a lot. That was 10 years ago, you know, so, and, and I love it. And I do it because this is what I'm supposed to be doing, you know, or one of the millions of things that I'm supposed to be doing. So, and I think that people that, you know, there was a book, The Fifth Sacred Thing, and I can't remember the author. Excuse me. You know, and she talks about where when people have the opportunity to do the things they love. Oh, there you are. When people have the opportunity to do the things that they love, then society works because everybody's happy
Yeah.
because they're doing what they love. And it seems like in society today, there are so many people that don't do what they love and they're just not happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Following the heart is just so crucial now, you know. And just those baby steps in loving ourselves is so important. Are you getting any sort of disturbance in the show? Because
With the feed,
Yeah, no, is
I mean,
everything
you look
okay?
fine.
Yeah, it's just there's a slight noise on my computer, but if it's not
I'm not
disturbing the
hearing
show,
it.
that's fine. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. It's
Um,
it's just my battery's going overtime. I don't know why, because I've got it on charger.
okay. We were talking a little bit about all these different belief systems that we find around the world. Is it possible to figure out which texts or traditions are true or accurate? Or, you know, what's really going on? Is there any way to figure that out?
Well, I think in the at the end of the day, if you're guided to a particular text or a particular piece of wisdom, or to read a book or to go to a particular teacher, then each one has their own unique journey. There is no right and wrong. That's just a 3D linear understanding of things. Because in the house of the Lord, or whatever you want to call it, in the divine, all things are allowed, but of course within relative reality, as I explain in my book, The Divine Mother Speaks, The Healing of the Human Heart. Actually, the goddess Hathor explains, but I mean, I'm channeling, so, and I'm one with that which I channel. Um, in relative reality, as we sow, so shall we reap. So if you murder somebody, you are going to have the repercussions of that. And then there's life, death, life, death, life, death. But in absolute reality, all is one, all is pure, all is complete, and there is no good and bad, right and wrong, and so on. These are um, universal laws, and they're tied and tested in any really true mystical text across the globe of whatever denomination. But somebody is guided to Sufism, and somebody else is guided to something else. Everybody's guided, to the Reiki path or to a pagan path or whatever it might be.
But it seems like with any path, it's really about taking it to the deeper level. It's not about going to church on Sunday, or setting up your little altar and thinking that, you know, you're going to be saved, because you did this. I mean, wouldn't you say that it's really about, creating the spiritual tradition in your daily life versus just doing these acts that may or may not
I
do
think
anything?
I
That's a terrible
feel
question, but I think you know what I
I
mean.
feel, there's a great place for ceremony, for tradition, for ritual. In India we have so many rituals and so many celebrations, and there's a great richness in culture, or the Native American tradition, or the Jewish holidays and what they do and their traditions, and so on. When the Muslims fast, the system gets a rest, and so on. And but but ultimately it's about, I meet so many new agers and they won't share their bread with you. Particularly in the new age movement, and I go into all sorts of different types of new age situations, because one of my roles is like a spiritual James Bond, where I go maybe as a student or as a teacher, and I'm shifting frequency, just through being a renegade. And saying, hang on, the energy, and that's not a judgment thing, it just happens. But and then they're not sharing their bread, and so what's that about? It's about love, it's about sharing. And I don't mean, charity begins at home. So you start with yourself, and then you take care of yourself, and then you reach out to somebody else with a smile. Whoever I meet, I'm like, how can I help you? What energy can I send for you within free will and the higher good? That doesn't mean I'm a magician or, whatever. But if you have trust and faith, then I'm just a mirror to you of yourself. And you can have a shift in consciousness, just from attention plus intention equals manifestation.
Thank you for watching this portion of our interview with Rashmi Khilnani about iGod. If you're enjoying today's program, please click on the button below and subscribe to our channel. If you want to hear this interview in its entirety, become a Just Energy Radio insider at justenergyradio.com and access full shows commercial free and gain access to our over 9 years of show archives. And don't forget to share this episode with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And until next time, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy.